Okay, so we died there just for a second. But Lonnie made reference to this thing dying with, what did you say? How did you say it was happening right here, Lonnie?
Well, Michael mentioned the rabbit ears, and I said that, and I've got the aluminum foil that connects to the rabbit ears. So we're back. We're back live.
And an ancient reference, the likes of which probably 40% or 30% of the people listening now will understand. Okay, I'll explain it. Rabbit ears were on a TV when TV only went terrestrial, and that means that if you didn't have an antenna on your roof, you had what were called little rabbit ears. And I almost said something that dated me again. I almost said something like, "Oh, you know, the little antenna on Ray Walston from My Favorite Martian." Of course, that would have gotten me even deeper in the damn weeds. That people, if they didn't understand rabbit ears, they sure as shit wouldn't have understood Ray Walston from My Favorite Martian.
I love that show.
Okay, so now that I've dated myself, and I found myself...
Wasn't Mr. Ed on after that?
I think so. I think so. You're right. And nobody will get Mr. Ed either. And now that I've dated myself, and actually I'm not a bad date. I do put out on the first date. Let's go back to what we were talking about. I submit this, and then I'd like both your way on this, your to opine on this, Lonnie Poindexter and Mike Fitzpatrick. It would seem to me, and correct me if I'm incorrect, that Putin and Russia are being illustrated as unstoppable. That they and he are this massive machine that is going to roll into Ukraine and crush everything and everyone. To which I reply, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold up on that car wash. You're not hearing everything. I've heard the news people say that the convoy, for example, is 20 miles long. Mm-hmm. And then today I was hearing it's 40 miles long. Okay, now that is a little tidbit of information that to me makes sense, because what that is indicating, and I'm hearing bits and pieces from all sorts of different sources, is that because of the condition of military equipment in Russia, they're having trucks that they can't get moving. And the reason they can't get them moving is because they're losing air and they're losing pressure. And just like our military vehicles, when you build a truck on a chassis that large, they don't have the standard lug nut configuration that even big commercial trucks have here. Mm-hmm. They have up to 20 to 30 lug nuts. And it requires a very specialized type of equipment and people who know how to remove those to even change the damn tires. Mm-hmm. So you're getting trucks that were not maintained well, that now apparently are running out of fuel, because at this point you're talking, it's all about logistics. So I suspect that this is tending more towards the truth, and the reason you're getting a longer convoy, how it magically, mystically changed from 20 miles one day or 3 days ago to maybe 40 miles now, is that at the end of it, they're backing up all that crap because the front of it ain't moving. And the reason the front of it ain't moving is because the Soviets are running out of equipment, which was poorly maintained, with soldiers that are poorly trained, that cannot change a tire, that don't know how to change the tracks on a tank, and oh, by the way, whereas before, especially with tanks and, of course, rubber-tired vehicles, it was icy before these roads. What is it now? It's springtime for Hitler and Germany. So what are we seeing? We're seeing Operation Barbarossa in 1945, replayed before our very damned eyes, when it was decided by Hitler that he was going to go into Russia on an assault in winter. Winter in Russia, no bueno. Did not do really well for our lovely Mr. Hitler. And now I suspect that Putin is beginning to learn this lesson. Running out of fuel, food for the troops, who'd heard something today on one of the media, I don't even remember where, that the troops are now going into various homes and raiding homes all around the people where this big convoy is stopped. Mm-hmm. So that tells me Putin is going to up his game somewhere because his threshold is being lowered in this big convoy. So when we're seeing that buildings are being destroyed, when we're seeing that the Russian army is aiming at civilian targets, I think it's because that's low-hanging fruit, and somebody's got to pay. So if logistically this wonderfully crafty individual cannot logistically figure out how to get any number of tracked and tired vehicles into Ukraine, then what next? The other question, which begs, is where's his air cover? Why did we go into Iraq and bomb the shit out of everything? In 1991, how did the highway of death come around? It came about because of the A-10 Warthog. It came around because of the Warthog firing depleted uranium into this massive line of people and carriers and militarized and tracked and rubber-tired equipment and armor and lit them all up. So where's root? I have not seen. I've seen a few things. I've seen a few things in the air. I've seen some helos. Why didn't he have a massive air attack, a massive air campaign at the very beginning? And I submit, Putin ain't all that and a piece of baloney.
You hit, in my opinion, the nail squarely on the head. I mentioned this a little earlier in the broadcast that. And I'll just say this, I think he had way too much confidence in his infrastructure. If you think about what happened World War II when Germany tried to go into Russia during the winter and what have you, and you think about during World War II, the infrastructure that Russia had, remember the Soviet Union collapsed, right? And when it collapsed, when Ronald Reagan said, tear down this wall and so forth, we outspent them because of our technology and our economic prowess. And I've always wondered if they were able to build back that infrastructure. I think you hit on something that there's holes in that infrastructure.
There are still holes in that infrastructure.
Yeah, even so many years later, there's still holes in it. I mean, it's not economic boom time over there because, they're kind of doing what China's doing. Look at, China's having problems. I was just reading.
China is not the economic powerhouse that everybody is leading you to
build
believe.
Build all those cities, and they got nobody to go into the cities because they're building a crony capitalism and they're building a false economy, and there's nobody to move into the cities, into those apartments they build up. And so they're having their kind of come to Jesus. I think you hit on something. I think that's the reason why. And maybe with the their Air Force and so forth over there, pilots. Well, I hope we don't have to fly these things.
Historically speaking, Russian equipment has not been very great. What people don't realize is during World War II, the T-tanks, I don't remember which ones, T-30s or T-35s, when they had a tank crew in there, the tank crew was also issued a massive sledge so that they could get the tank into gear. That's called a clue. You also had officers. The only people that had maps in any kind of a Russian unit were the officers because they didn't trust their troops with maps. So if they didn't wish to mass up in one place, they could go someplace else and figure out where they were. Russia historically has been like that. China is not infallible. Russia is not infallible. This is a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a good thing in terms of everything ain't going to go like Putin thinks. It's a good thing in terms of Xi Jinping. It ain't everything going to go like he wants either. It's a bad thing because when you get a honey badger cornered, then a honey badger is going to react very poorly, which leads me to believe Putin has already threatened nukes, etc. Do I put it past him? You'd have to be really an insane dude to drop that with mad these days. We're not fabulous, but we still have missiles, ICBMs. We've sold a lot of our ICBMs. Hey, the smart dudes bought them up, and they're living in them right now, just in case. But with Russia...
You also heard today that there are a couple, it sounds like there's a couple of Russian oligarchs that have actually put a bounty out on Putin.
Oh.
I did not hear.
Oh.
Okay, that changes some metrics.
Because that's why... Go ahead,
one
Mike.
of the bounties is $1 million.
Okay.
So, and again, it's the oligarch, because they're losing their stuff. I mean, who is it? Roman Abramovich is the owner of Chelsea FC in the UK, Russian oligarch. He's having to put up his team for sale that he's owned for 20 years because of this. So they're losing their stuff. There's yachts being confiscated all around the world right now.
Right.
Well, and the oligarchs are escaping like crazy to neutral waters as quickly as their little boats will go.
So they were happy.
But
Go ahead, Mike.
But if those oligarchs are on that SWIFT banking system, then their assets have already been seized. I mean, we've seen the canceling of a president of the United States. We've seen the canceling of companies. We're now seeing the canceling of a country.
Wow.
And to which, as I indicate, that could be a good thing, and it could be a bad thing. It could be a good thing in terms of an attempted stemming of what Putin was trying to do now, and it could be a bad thing in terms of, as some people have posited, I don't know how much this is true, some people are saying that over the years, Putin has isolated himself to the point where he believes his own press. Mm-hmm. And if that's true, I don't know how much sanity there may be left in the man. One can only hope. But in truth, I cannot say that I have 100% confidence in the fact that he won't go squirrely one day. See, here's the other thing. Yeah, again, like you pointed out, Lonnie, and you pointed out, Mike, step back a little bit. Examine some of the other factors that are involved. Belarus is aligned with Russia, period, end of statement. That's why the Russian troops went through Belarus, because they've been glad-handing themselves for quite some time. In a briefing given by the president of Belarus or one of his generals, I cannot recall at this point, they were saying essentially that they were considering going on through to Moldova, which is not a pro-Russia client state, to which the people in Moldova, their sphincters ought to be watertight right about now. And then Poland, here's the critical issue, the key link to it all, I believe. I was a member of the IPA, which is the International Police Association, and I hosted people from other countries. I had a German Polizei dude over to my house, and he stayed. I had a bunch of Polish cops over. I want to tell you right now. Oh, and I also had Polish cops over to EVOC when I taught at the Emergency Vehicle Operations course. Hey, run a Polish dude through the Emergency Response course running Code 3, and you'll have a happy camper, guaranteed. But I want to tell you, the Polish people love America. Mm-hmm. And historically, that's because Americans have held with the Polish people. Mm-hmm. Poland, of course, being a NATO member. If Putin decides that he really wants to get the band back together again, mm-hmm. and attempts to take Moldova or any of the surrounding countries, or makes any kind of an incursion into Poland, because what you haven't heard, or maybe you have, is that Putin is lining troops up on the Polish border, mm-hmm. and Putin has said that the other things that he's considering is, cutting transatlantic cables. So what is on this guy's grid, what is on this guy's screen in his brain housing group, and what isn't? But then if he makes an incursion into Poland, a clear and obvious NATO country, one of the prime countries from which NATO was originally, its purpose and intent was created, and decides to go into NATO, then all the rest of the NATO countries ought to be saying something similar to, oh, fuck, when are we next?
Of course.
And that's Putin going into Poland or another serious big client state of NATO. That's what scares me.
And he's upset the party that, and I mean by literally having a good time party, that the oligarchs have been, the big fancy yachts and so forth, and making tons of money because they're the ones that support him in power.
Well, he's the one that upon the dissolution in 1989, 1990, 1991, when Russia totally fell apart and all the client states fell apart, and that's where we get the name Balkanized.
Right.
They were the dudes to step in on a private fashion and realize, this is a wonderful opportunity for us. Money, drugs, gangs, here we go. Because it is, in fact, the Wild West here in Russia.
Yes, and so he's, in effect, overturning the apple cart of the good times for them. So I was not aware of the bounty that's on his head by one of them.
Either. I find that
so
very interesting.
It might be somebody close to Mr. Poontang, that would take him out, as I look at it, because I spent a lot of time on YouTube, and this cat's got some great, big, fancy, beautiful boats, and they have a good time going to what's the country where the province of France that you guys know the name of it. It's a monarchy where all the rich dudes go and hang out with their multi-million-dollar yachts.
Monaco.
Monaco,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they hang out in Monaco and they travel all throughout the world. And here, this guy's jacking with stuff that's where these guys got to move their boats to try to neutral waters so they won't be confiscated and what have you as this thing amps up. I would think that one of them, just as you guys stated, would want to see this cat go away. Hey, you can be the dictator. You can be all of that if you keep the status quo. You change the status quo because I've always felt that he had a hard-on to bring the band back together, as you stated, and retrieve the Balkan states. And I think, as you're right, their sphincters have to be really tight. In particular, Poland, because Poland paid a tremendous price during World War II, and then after World War II, as with Russia doing what it did with those Balkan countries. And they're not trying to go back. And I would think even the ones that roll with Russia, well, we roll with you, but we didn't want to go that far. You know what I mean? Because it puts pressure on all of them. Mike, your thoughts, my brother?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting, at some point in time, with all of the oligarchs' money being messed with, several of these yachts. I mean, one of them is the largest in the world.
Yes.
Huge. And it was actually in dry dock. Several of these are in dry dock getting fixed up for spring and summer. So they weren't able to get away.
Oh.
Then you've got others that did get away, shut off their transponders so no one could tell where they are going.
Right.
And hightailed it likely for waters and bays and oceans that were much more friendly to them, where they wouldn't be immediately retrieved.
Yes.
So here's the other thing that I think finally we have to consider, because it is definitely about, let's see, it's almost 11 o'clock here on the left coast, which means that it's almost 2 a.m. on the East Coast. Holy crap. So I'm gonna wrap it up with some of these things and throw this potentiality out to you two guys, and then ask for your opinions on both. Back in 1944, this is what happened. Klaus von Stauffenberg attempted to kill Hitler with a briefcase that exploded under a table at Wolf's lair.
Mm-hmm.
And Hitler was not killed. He was injured. His drug usage became wild and frequent after that. But that's when the great pogrom against many of his generals occurred, when he realized that he was not invincible as he thought he was, and pulled himself in even with a greater bunker mentality than before. If someone is paying for some kind of an assassination attempt on Putin, in this situation, I suspect things would only get worse and almost nothing would be off the table. I worry that Russia, I worry on a number of levels. I worry about fuel. Mm-hmm. I worry about food, because Russia and Ukraine are responsible for about 14 to 15% of the entire world's grain production. Mm. Russia's responsible for 40% of the fuel and gas used by all of Europe, not just a couple of countries. So if you see some kind of an assassination attempt, public or not, made public or not, you're going to get an individual that would potentially consider anything. So I'm thinking of fuel costs. I'm thinking of food costs. I'm thinking of EMPs. Mm-hmm. Would Putin put it out of consideration, maybe not to drop something on our soil, but an airburst? Then I'm thinking of cyber attacks. I don't see for the immediate future that any of our stuff could be that fabulous, because we just don't know how this guy is going to go. We do know that we've had the opportunity to stop him by being strong, as your quote was, only a strong guy respects another strong guy, Lonnie Poindexter. I have no idea where this is going. Lonnie, any thoughts on that, sir?
No, I just ditto pretty much what you said. It gives us much to think about. I'll just say my closing thoughts are: it's just an honor and a pleasure to be on air with you and Michael. You two are pretty smart guys. I learn a lot whenever I sit at your feet and watch you guys pontificate on various topics. You give me the things to think about, and so I'm encouraged, because I hadn't really thought about the fact that Russia's got holes, and
China got holes.
Uh-huh.
Russia got holes,
and so it'll be interesting to see what rolls out from that. That's pretty much all I have to share. Just it's been, and for those of you that are listening out there, this is a joy and a privilege. This is information that you're not going to hear this stuff on. Well, you're not going to hear it in mainstream media at all, because, they're a part of. I call them the anti-God agenda. Because this is really, at the end of the day, it's a spiritual battle. The physical manifestation is what we're seeing and talking about.
I completely agree.
But it's a spiritual battle, because evil, and as many smart, I think Ronald Reagan, and I know this goes like way back in history. Freedom is not free. Was that Benjamin Franklin that first coined that? Every generation has to stand up and fight for it, and this is very much a freedom thing.
That's a Reagan quote.
Yeah, Reagan. Okay, and so these are the things that we're talking about. But I just want to again state, man, it's an honor and a pleasure to sit in the studio and then have Michael on. See, Michael will do these brain dumps on me. Most of it will go over my head.
And mine.
I'm just telling you, I don't know what he's talking about, and. But I am a technologist, so he always gets
the tech ninja.
He gets a great chuckle out of that. But so.
The tech ninja.
I'm the tech paramecium. I am a single-celled organism when it comes to technology.
I'm about there as well. So that's all I have to share.
And Mike Fitzpatrick, your thoughts?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about what businesses can do, especially small to mid-sized businesses.
Perfect.
So first thing is make sure all of your patches on your systems, your phones, your mobile devices are all up to date. They're in place, and you're 100% on that. 2, use strong passwords. Don't use, like BZ's password got hacked the other day, which was, some version of FJB, let's go Brandon, in uppercase, lowercase, and maybe some numbers.
Okay, just because it was QWERTY, okay? Jeez, you guys are relentless.
So use strong passwords. If you don't have a password manager, get a password manager and let it generate your passwords. But use something stronger, because no longer are the hackers really having to do anything tricky. They're capturing passwords and using stolen credentials to gain access. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that.
Look at me. I'm a perfect example. QWERTY, QWERTY on the keyboard right here. Kids, don't try that at home, okay? Just don't.
Took all of 2 seconds. 2 seconds to probably crack that. Number 3, use multi-factor authentication, meaning when you go to log in, it'll ask for a code. You'll send you a text message, or it'll use a code generator off of Google Authenticator. It's a great way to beat phishing attacks. Number 3, expect if anything that you receive that is from somebody, number 4, I should say, anything that you see from somebody that you don't know, assume that it's phishing. Check it out a little bit. Click the links and don't click the links. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Check the header.
What?
Check the header of the email and make sure that it's a valid email. If you're curious, don't click the link. Just go to the website that they're asking you to go to, but don't use their links. 3, use endpoint security as well as antivirus. It's very little is about antivirus these days. It's really about endpoint security and being able to defend your mobile device from that perspective. Understand your network, know what's normal, what's not normal, and if it's something that's not normal, check into it. Number 7, back up your network. Make sure your backups are working and that you can restore it. 82% of companies don't have working backups. Check your backups. Make sure they work.
I get it if that's, like Joe Brown's corner store, like I say, at the corner of walk and don't walk. I get it if he doesn't have a fabulous backup. But businesses these days,
but they're not. Every business is a technology company now.
Yes.
So if you don't have backups, here's the reality. If your backups fail or you don't have complete backups, you will be out of business within 6 months.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
I can remember that's one of the first things you told me on one of the first shows that I had you here on. You said that.
And then, check out your third-party risk. Again, this goes to SolarWinds. This goes to Microsoft. This goes to so check your vendors that you work with. Make sure that, that they're as secure as they can be and that they're guarding your data that you're sharing with them as thoroughly as possible. And then number 9, make sure you have an incident response plan. So when everything goes wrong and it all hits the fan, you have a plan for how you get back up off of the ground and get back in business. Those are the things that you need to spend your time on now while you have the time. Because there could be a time coming where you won't have time.
Mike Fitzpatrick, let's say I'm a moderate business and my attention has been drawn to what's been occurring lately, or maybe I even came across this show. And I ask myself, where can I go to have somebody examine my system or maybe help me along in the creation of making my business more secure. Well, that would be you. How would they contact you?
Well, they can get to us. Thanks, BZ. They can get to us at www.ncxgroup.com is the website, and all the contact information is there.
And let me also check if I can. You don't just do big, huge businesses like BlackRock. You do smaller businesses too. You can craft plans for any damn buddy.
That's one of the things I think I'm most proud of is the fact that when I started the business, the idea was to provide world-class service to small and mid-sized businesses. But to your point, on one end of the spectrum, I've got a client that is 15 employees, but they're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So they have the same level of compliance requirements that GM has because they're publicly traded. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I've got 5 global Fortune 50 accounts that we provide security services for.
Okay.
And it's banking, finance, healthcare, higher education. There isn't a critical infrastructure. There isn't an industry that we are not working with clients in.
And because I want to sleep soundly at night, folks, I didn't mean to imply that Mike Fitzpatrick actually has BlackRock as a client, nor would he send assassination agents out at 2 a.m. to tiptoe through my door and then make sure that I never talk about that association ever again. I'm not saying that you got them as a client, Mike Fitzpatrick. So I'm not trying to imply there is no warranty, express or implied, that something similar to that would occur. So, Lonnie Poindexter, thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. Mike Fitzpatrick, thank you so kindly for being here tonight. I get tired of saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, just on account of because you know I'm going to. Lonnie, would you like to come back perhaps next week and we can continue this conversation?
He loves to put you on the spot. I can see
why
it
not?
coming. And I'm always at your service.
Okay,
so.
and Mike Fitzpatrick, I didn't get to, like a molecule of what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. So would you consider coming back next week sometime, sir?
Sure.
Okay. All right. One word. That's good. I like that. It's like Kurt. Yes. Before we go, though, folks, I want to play this for you because I think in 50 seconds, this guy, whom you didn't expect, nails it.
The history of every single country that's ever existed other than the United States, up until 1776, every fucking country that has ever existed was run by dictators. This is the first one where you had elected officials. This is the first experiment in self-government that actually worked, and it created the greatest superpower the world's ever known. It created the greatest cultural machine, the greatest machine of art and creativity and innovation right fucking here. And how did it do that? It did it through freedom. Because when you give people freedom, you let people do whatever the fuck they want to do, they actually find ways to succeed and grow and thrive. But as soon as you put the boots to them, as soon as you tell them, you have to do this or you can't do that, you're moving one step closer to dictatorship. That's what the fuck is happening.
Monsieur has unlocked!
And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the Saloon here at the SHR Media Network, a network run by nitwits like me. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, or on Getter now, mostly because I'm transitioning over from Twitter, on Getter at BZeppelin. Spell it out, Zeppelin. So also, promotional consideration is by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going.
To the folks that I know,
Tiaras are by My Little Pony.
they'll be happy.
Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be concerting after about, I don't know, maybe an hour this time, because I got stuff to do, okay? Thanks to Lonnie Poindexter for being live in the studio tonight. Thank you, sir. And thanks to Mike Fitzpatrick for being here tonight. Thanks to everybody listening, everybody in the chat room, listening in podcast. Everybody, I'll be back next week. God bless, take care. God bless America, be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.